Thank you, Dragan. Thank you, Nada. Dear colleagues and friends, it gives me great pleasure to open this session with the results from our food poisoning outbreak in factory in Tetovo that happened in March 2017. So, how it started? On March 31st, the local epidemiologist received a call from the city hospital telling him that in the early morning hours between 12 o'clock in the midnight and 7 in the morning, more than 100 patients were admitted to the hospital with the symptoms of food poisoning. Obviously, she immediately went in the field, and her first findings were that all of the patients were actually employees in the nearby factory, and they were all working from the second and third shift that night, all eat in the factory canteen. And the main symptoms of the patients were weakness, nausea, and vomiting. Due to a large number of the patients reported, the epidemiologist decided that need assistance from our Institute of Public Health and call upon for assistance in the outbreak investigation. We immediately composed outbreak investigation team from a leading epidemiologist was from Institute of Public Health, supported by the Regional Public Health Center, but also we included other professions in the team, such as microbiologists and lab technicians to help us in the field investigation, specialists in environmental medicine for the possible water exposure. And of course, by law, we are obliged to inform and include in the team State and Sanitary Health Inspectorate and Food and Veterinary Agency. Objective of this outbreak investigation team was obviously to investigate the outbreak, but in order to identify the cause and the risk factor associated with the illness, to implement control measures to stop the spreading of the outbreak, and of course, to learn from the mistake and propose measures to prevent future outbreaks. We decided to implement a retrospective cohort study for the outbreak investigation, and as a cohort we defined all the factory workers from the second and third shift that were at work at the incriminated time. As a case, we defined that each worker from these two shifts who developed the symptoms of nausea and vomiting and the symptoms developed during period of 30 to 31st of March. For data collection, we used a structured questionnaire with basic sociodemographic data, of course, exposure to food items served in the canteen, and we used telephone interviews to contact them. We obtained the telephone numbers and the contact details from the factory management staff. We used AP info to calculate risk ratio for each food item. But we did not limit ourselves to analytical epidemiology. We did field investigation as well, and we visited the factory where we spoke about the process and possible risk factor with management and staff, and also took environmental samples for lab investigation at the factory canteen. But all the food served in this factory is prepared by the catering service, and also the serving and the preparation is done by the catering. So we went in the restaurant when the food was prepared, when we had the interviews with food handlers and with the management staff about their procedures for hygiene and food management. And as well, we took also environmental samples, but also samples from the food handlers. As well, we were able to obtain the samples from the food served at the factory at that time. All of the microbiological analysis was done in the Regional Center for Public Health. So what were the results from our outbreak investigation? In total, we obtained contacts from 557 factory workers that were at work during these days and during these two shifts. Out of them, we were able to contact 462, or more than 80%. All contacted, mainly all, except two, accepted to participate in the study. Just basic data, 72% are females, which explains because it's a factory working with sewing. Age of the participants is from 19 to 55 years. The mean age is 35 years of age. And of the contacted of our participants, 29.6% met the case definition we defined it. What we can clearly see immediately now is that the attack rate in the third shift was much higher compared to the second shift. Only 15 workers in the second shift met the case definition compared to 121 workers in the third shift. The epi curve in this slide showed the frequency of cases by symptom onset time. And what we can see here is clear distinction between second and the third shift, and we can conclude that the vast majority of cases actually developed symptoms early in the morning from 2 o'clock until 5 o'clock on March 31st. And we also had some sporadic, less cases on the day before, in the evening. And what we can also see from the slide is that the time from the lunch served in the canteen to the symptom onset is in period of 1 to 6, maximum 8 hours, and the mean time is around 3 hours. Total cases presented here are 136. So we did analytical study, of course, and we, in the univariate analysis of exposure to different food items served during the lunch in the canteen, what we can conclude is that the main risk factor for developing of disease was eating pasta. The risk ratio was 31.5 times higher compared to those who did not eat pasta. But also we found that bolognese sauce with a risk factor of 2.7 and yogurt with a risk factor of 1.7 were also associated with the disease. What's also very interesting is that there was a clear distinction between attack rates, as earlier mentioned, between two working shifts. And working in the third shift at that factory, at that time, was associated with 9 times higher risk for developing the disease. However, when we did the stratified analysis for the other food items that were associated with the disease in the crude analysis, when we did the adjusted analysis for exposure to pasta, we see that both bolognese sauce and yogurt turn out to be not associated with disease. Adjusted mental health relative risk was 1.1 and 0.9. Also, the specimens taken from the field investigation showed that in factory canteen, out of 11 samples taken, 7 were positive for Staphylococcus aureus. In the canteen, in the catering kitchen, when the food is prepared, out of 10 samples, only 1 turned out positive as well for Staphylococcus aureus. But what is very important is that 2 of the food handlers, 1 food serving person and 1 of the chefs was actually carrier of Staphylococcus aureus. And we will also able to isolate Staphylococcus aureus in the pasta served that night in the factory in large quantities. Although some of the limitation which I should mention in this outbreak investigation is that generally in the country and especially on regional level, we lack laboratory capacities to detect enterotoxins of Staphylococcus aureus, which would have been proved useful in this case. But also, what I need to mention is that because this was the very high outbreak that attracted a lot of media attention, it also was reported to the police, and part of our team was also public prosecutor and the police. The public prosecutors ordered that the kitchen and the canteen in the factory should not be cleaned until our field visit, which is something out of the routine things to do. So this may imply that the growth of bacteria and it can explain such a high positive number of samples. Although we were able to collect the data from the participants in a period of 48 hours after the outbreak, there is still possibility for a recall bias. What are the main conclusions from this outbreak is what we can see is that the epidemic curve indicates that this is point source outbreak. We have a very short incubation period of time. We also see that the workers from the third shifts had a 9 times higher risk for developing illness compared to the second shift, and eating pasta was actually the only one risk factor of the food items associated with disease. The fact that we find the Staphylococcus aureus in the pasta in the large quantities also implies that there is some improper food handling going on in the catering service. So, but it's not only that. What was very interesting, this outbreak had a very high social and economic impact. It attracted a lot of media attention. The factory was closed for a day and a half. You can imagine how that reflects to the financial losses, and the food operator is facing the charges for covering the losses. And all of this can be actually prevented. So what were our recommendations? So according to our law, carriers of Staphylococcus aureus should not be in direct contact with the food until negative. Maintaining hygiene in the kitchen and in the catering services of high priority. Storage and transport of the food, which is very important, and we find that to be one of the reasons why this outbreak happened, should be according to the laws. And what I think is the very, very important things, we can do checkups very frequently, but if we do not educate food handlers for the minimum standards of personal hygiene, we can not prevent successfully these such outbreaks. So I would like to express my great gratitude to all my co-workers who helped me in this team, my supervisors and my colleagues, and also to the Mediterranean training program, which gave us the knowledge to do this outbreak, and also special thanks to all the participants who actually responded in such a high rate. Thank you for your attention.
Question is, do you happen to have the data about the two food handlers? When was the last time when they did the regular checkup? And did they have the documentation, so-called sanitary books, completed and in accordance to the law?
Thank you very much, and this, for this question and bringing up this issue, because this was why I said the education is the most important thing. Because both food handlers, the chef and the food service person, both have regular checkups and were found negative at that time. So person can get colonized in meantime, so although it helps, it serves the purpose, the education, I think, is the key focus we should implement. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Nicolette.
Oh, Nicolette would like.
Thank you very much for this interesting investigation. I would like to ask you, what is your explanation about the difference in the attack rates between the two shifts? How do you explain this? And did you say that they had eaten the same things? Yes.
Thank you for this question. Due to the limited time, I did not present all the findings we had, but this was also our main puzzle. Why was attack rate such different between second and third shift, while they both had served with the same food items for the two shifts? What we have learned during our field investigation is that they prepare the food fresh for each shift. However, the cook cooked the pasta in large quantities, both for the second and the third shift. And they left the pasta in improper conditions, so they can serve it for the third shift. Only the bolognese sauce and the remaining items were cooked fresh. So there is enough time to actually, for the colonized by the improper food handling, so the growth of bacteria and enterotoxin was much higher in the third shift. This is what we have learned, and we can see there is a effect modifying, I don't have this slide here, but we show that there is effect modifying between second and third shift.
Good. Thank you. So we're thinking, our colleague from India.
Just I was thinking that what was the attack rate among the different age groups, and instead of doing this stratified analysis, can we do this multivariate analysis where we can include the socio-demographics also along with these other two potential risk factors? In that case, it would have given a So just it was a thought. Did you try it or?
Yes, we
okay.
did also, but by other socio-demographic factors, but we did not find any significant association between age and sex and outcome for the disease. That's why I didn't present it here. But in our report, it's included. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, no more questions. So I think it was a very well defined outbreak, investigated, quite good descriptive epidemiology, analytical, so it was possible for us to see also the confounding effect, the effect modification, so really good example. Thank you, Vladimir.
Thank you.